Hi guys, so today I just wanted to speak a little bit about Star Wars Battlefront 2, the game that everybody seems to be talking about at the moment, and not exactly for the right reasons. Now, over the past week, the launch of the highly anticipated Star Wars Battlefront 2 has largely been shrouded by a great deal of controversy. If you pay attention to gaming media, then you probably know that EA recently decided to temporarily remove the loot box system from Battlefront 2 after severe consumer outcry against it. Now, this whole situation has had many people contemplating the question of whether or not consumer outcry against microtransaction systems has finally resulted in a very rare win for the consumer in the gaming community's seemingly endless war against microtransactions. So the question here in simpler terms is, did the gaming community really just beat EA? I think in order to answer this question, one really does need to analyze the loot box system in Battlefront 2 and why exactly it made so many people angry, and then also examine the potential avenues EA may take when they eventually decide to reactivate the microtransaction system in the game. So the short reason as to why so many people were angry about the microtransaction system in Star Wars Battlefront 2 is that not only did it destroy the game's balancing system, but it also seemed to push players towards buying in-game loot boxes with real-world money in order to fully experience the game. Getting into a more detailed explanation, in Battlefront 2, players basically have the opportunity to buy loot boxes with either crystals, an in-game currency bought with real-world money, or credits, an in-game currency that is separate to the crystals and is only earned by playing multiplayer matches. In these loot boxes, players were provided with star cards, which are basically items that provide weapons with improved abilities, as well as other enticing in-game rewards. From this explanation, one is easily able to see that Battlefront 2 had a standard pay-to-win model in it, and this on its own is able to get a lot of people very angry. Arguably, however, the unbalanced weapon system within the game did not play as large a role in creating the controversy surrounding the game as the system surrounding the hero playable characters. For example, characters such as Darth Vader or Luke Skywalker. You know, while the hero characters were available to all players in the first Battlefront reboot title in the form of a pickup during matches, Battlefront 2 changed the system to one where players needed to pay for characters using in-game credits. It's in this situation where it's very important to remember the difference between crystals and credits. Now, while the system in itself is not evil, as it should simply mean that players that play the game more are going to unlock the characters a lot quicker, the rate at which players were earning credits and the price at which hero characters were available is ultimately what created so much outcry. Players who had early access to the game estimated that it would take about 40 hours of play just to unlock some characters, if one were to do it in the elbow grease method. Let's not even lie now, most people buy Battlefront because they want to play as Darth Vader or Luke Skywalker. EA knows this, and this is why the loot box system in Battlefront 2 also provided the opportunity to earn the hero playable characters. At this point, it's also important to note that the hero characters are only purchasable through the use of in-game credits and not crystals. Thus, players were not even able to directly purchase the hero characters and would have to rely on the chance-based mechanics of the loot box system. This whole system was basically designed to push players to spend as much money as possible on loot boxes. When players who had early access to the game started making all of this information known, there were a lot of people directing questions at EA trying to determine whether or not all of this was true. The statement that basically came to represent EA's initial stance on the whole controversy was a post on the Star Wars Battlefront subreddit in which the explanation provided for the long unlock times was that it would provide players with a sense of pride and accomplishment. For the entire week leading up to Battlefront 2's launch, people around the world angered by the microtransaction system within the game, protested against it. EA did respond to this anger by drastically reducing the amount required to buy hero characters, and then also holding an AMA on Reddit where gamers could ask questions about the game, but this did very little to appease fan outrage. All of the noise surrounding the launch of Battlefront 2 also then led to authorities in 2 countries in charge of the regulation of gaming content investigating the loot box system in order to determine whether or not it is truly similar to gambling. Ultimately, last week ended off with the release of Star Wars Battlefront 2 with its microtransaction system turned off. The decision to temporarily delay the inclusion of a microtransaction system within the game came after EA reportedly faced some pressure from Disney, the owners of the Star Wars brand, to remove them due to the alarming amount of negative media coverage of the situation. At this moment in time, it definitely does seem like gamer outcry did ultimately lead to EA removing the microtransaction system in Battlefront 2, even if only temporarily. Despite the fact that the biggest external influencing party with regards to this decision is definitely Disney, there is no denying that the company would not have taken issue with the system if it hadn't been for gamer outcry. It is also, however, for this very reason that a lot of people have viewed this victory with some sort of skepticism. Would EA have deigned to remove the microtransaction system from Battlefront 2 and rework it if they hadn't been pressured to do so by Disney? I think this is a question that we will never know the answer to. It's also important to remember that there is a new Star Wars film coming out next month, and Disney definitely wants this film to do very well, and thus it's highly likely that they do not want anything tarnishing the Star Wars brand at this very moment, and thus probably did put immense pressure on EA to end this whole outcry. Then it's also important to look at the fact that other games have also recently experienced backlash from the gaming community for including loot box systems, for example Shadow of War or Forza Motorsport 7, and those games did not see those systems removed despite significant outcry from the community. You know, regardless of whether or not Disney was the principal motivator in the temporary removal of the microtransaction system in Battlefront 2, it is highly unlikely that EA will go back to using the same system in the game after this whole controversy largely blows over. This does not necessarily mean that they will completely abandon the loot box system overall though. There is a chance that they will turn rewards found in loot boxes into cosmetic items. Would most people still consider this temporary removal of the loot box system a win for the gaming community? The answer to this question really depends on how one feels about cosmetic items. Regardless of how one looks at this whole situation, it is very gratifying that gamer outcry has seemingly finally led to a concrete change within a high-profile game from a major publisher. Only time will really tell whether the supposed victory will actually change publisher perception of loot box systems and their plans to implement them in future games. But what do you think? Did the gaming community beat EA? How do you think EA will change the microtransaction system in Battlefront 2? Did you even buy Star Wars Battlefront 2? Please share in the comments down below, and if you liked this video, please remember to subscribe. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.